You're very welcome along to the Matchbook NFL podcast, penultimate episode here. It's Conference Championship Sunday. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and delighted to be joined by Brad and Judah. Guys, it's coming to close to the end of the season. We'll touch on divisional round in a minute, Judah, but this NFL season overall, plus the playoffs, I feel it's definitely delivered. There should be more questions than answers. And even though it looks like we sort of know what's going on going into Sunday, there are still a few more question marks there too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a fitting way for the season to go, which is we really, I think, coming into the season, it seems like, and we've talked about this before, it seemed like we were in the era of dominant quarterbacks, and Patrick Mahomes hosted the AFC Championship game every year. You would think that if it weren't Patrick Mahomes, maybe Josh Allen would be hosting the championship game, Lamar Jackson would be hosting the championship game, maybe Joe Burrow. Or some up and coming quarterback who took the next step, and instead we have the Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Denver Broncos, who kind of miraculously in their fourth quarter of games, hit on the right side of variance, to say it, in statistical terms rather than probably just getting lucky in actuality. But I think in some ways it's a reminder of what the NFL is very much about, which is number one, like there's a ton of randomness and things are somewhat predictable, but at the end of the day, like there's a ton of luck involved. And the game here is being able to try and predict that just a little bit better than what the market can do. And the kind of other piece to this is like the league and its rules change and the way the game's played change. You talk about like the two high shells last year. I think this is like a kind of even the kickoff did a lot to change, certainly end of game strategy, end of half strategy. And football's constantly changing and constantly evolving. And it is kind of the better's job for sure to try and be able to be quick to understand that change, quantify that change, and be able to adjust. And I think the league is going through the same process, both in terms of how the game is quite literally played by the rules, and also just the game within the game of the cat and mouse between offense and defense, and management and decisions constantly changing. That's what makes this league so great.
Yeah, and the league's flipped also in the sense of the NFC strength versus the AFC strength versus what we had over the last couple of years, Brad.
Yes. Well, to just quickly on Judah's point, I had a quick interaction with Brian Burke on Twitter this week, who's he's like the grandfather of football analytics, works at ESPN now, and he had a tweet basically saying, I don't think people understand just how much game-to-game variance there is in the NFL. Like the playoffs will always be a random number generator, and I replied to him basically saying, no one who's ever bet on the NFL thinks there's not an absolute mountain of variance. And he replies, yeah, fair point. But yeah, outrights and NFC versus AFC, I think you can't go wrong just dutching the two NFC teams here. We'll obviously get more into the games, but I mean those two are far and away the best teams, and I think there's a lot of flaws in the AFC teams. So we can talk about that now. I'll get to that later.
Yeah, well, just on, so the odds are Seattle's 2.6, Rams 3.5, Patriots 385, and 13.0 for the Broncos. So, Brad, yeah, I saw your point down there. I thought you were just talking in generic football terms rather than betting, but you feel there is value in Dutching the top two there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at every advanced metric. I don't know. You start with DVOA, and it's Seahawks 1, Rams 2, and they're way clear of the AFC. And even point differential, like those two NFC teams are way clear of everyone. And then you look also, if Denver wins, and I don't think that's out of the question here, you're going to be at least 8.5 point, 9.5 point favorites. If the Patriots win, I think they're a very flawed team as well. We've been saying that for a while, and we'll talk about that more in the AFC game, but like easiest schedule ever. And then this schedule in the playoffs has been a bit of a joke. I mean, the Chargers were the worst offensive line in the league, and then the Texans, after the injuries in that game, Stroud goes in there and he's down. His starting right tackle gets ruled out in the build-up, or 90 minutes before it, with inactives. Then I think his next best offensive lineman goes down in the first quarter. He's obviously without his wide receiver 1 in Nico Collins. Then his second best receiver in the tight end, Dalton Schultz, goes out. Then the running back goes out, and it's snowing, and it's a dome team, and they looked lost. So yeah, and then obviously if they beat Jarrett Stidham, who cares? So they're going to play a real team in the Super Bowl if they get there, and I think they'll get walloped as well. So I don't think you can go wrong dutching those NFC teams just to win it all.
When you hear this, the stuff the lads are going to say about Stidham, you'll wonder what Brad really means by that, because they're going to be bigging him up. To be fair, I'm not joking there. Judah, before we move on to the actual games themselves, like Brad's been able to get the Patriots for a while, easy schedule, and I think I saw Brad's interaction on Twitter also when someone, I think, can't remember who, was saying there's no good teams in the NFL, so maybe we're being harsh on the easy schedule. But of course, Brad said there's no good teams in the AFC, and when they get to the NFC Super Bowl, that's going to be a different ball game altogether. Would you agree with that and the difference between the two conferences?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at least the teams left in those conferences, like the Rams and Seahawks, I think are both meaningfully better than the current state of the Broncos and the Patriots. I think as Brad pointed out, like Drake May had a terrific season. We were on here earlier this season talking about Drake May and the potential there, but it's also important to understand what the market's pricing in, and like Drake May really has not done it against teams like the Texans. The Broncos will be a great test, I think. But I mean, if you want to just look from a fundamental level, the Rams and Seahawks for sure, much better, much more complete teams.
Okay, yeah, it's a big difference in the two, but look, Super Bowls are Super Bowls. But Brad is saying you can dutch those two on the Match for Betting Exchange if you do want to be cheering on the NFC in 2 weeks' time. Before we get going, reminder, we've seen a lot of people this year, this season, NFL season, but also throughout the football season and horse racing jump season, head over to our offer, which is POD50. Enter the bonus code POD50, POD50, exclusive to podcast listeners, and you get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. Full T's and C's will be available on screen there shortly, and also on matchbook.com/promotions. 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. the Sunday kickoff times. I got dragged all over the place at 11 o'clock. Was it 11 or 11:30 last week? I ended up staying up for that incredible throw by Caleb Williams. Honestly, I think I nearly screamed the house down, and with no betting interest at that point in the game. It was just an absolutely insane throw. So realistically, I'll be staying up for the 11:30 game. Hopefully it delivers. But we'll start with the 8 p.m. and Judah, Patriots at the Broncos. I think the line we currently have is 4.5. Last time I checked, with Broncos 192, Patriots laying it the same number at 198, and 43 is the total. So, I mean, if people are living under a rock post the Broncos win, I mean, set this up. What this means, missing Bo Nix, having Stidham in there, and if you were to have a bet, which way would you go?
Yeah, I think like there's some. I mean, obviously, there's some ambiguity about the kind of injury with Nix and Stidham, but I actually think that's kind of a reason for some value, at least given where the market's gone from this game, which is implying a real delta between Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. And I don't love the idea of using kind of like implied points, especially between 0 and 3. I think just like looking at the win probability is probably a better measure, but the market is implying a 10 plus win probability difference right now between these two quarterbacks, and I don't think that's accurate in maybe in isolation, but given the context that I think so much of Bo Nix's production comes from being in Sean Payton's system, and Nix, the thing Nix does extraordinarily well is avoid sacks. But his ability to actually play in system leaves a lot to be desired. He's one of the least accurate deep passers. At Stidham, we don't have a huge sample, of course, but he in his 200 dropbacks of the last couple of years, his yards per dropback was about 6.1 each of those 2 seasons, where Nix has been about 5.5 the last couple of years. Obviously, that's one metric. It's a small sample. We have other things like EPA, PFF grade, but they were in similar boats, and I think Stidham in Payton's system can provide an upgrade. As for a bet there, regardless of the sort of efficiency, I think volume is very much going to be on the Broncos side. And this is a Patriots run defense that was terrific the first half of the season with Milton Williams and Robert Spillane. Those guys go down. The run defense struggles. They come back. They've been terrific. in their run defense, and I think this is going to function as a pass funnel team. Sean Payton has certainly shown a tendency to allow all of his quarterbacks to let it rip. I anticipate Stidham will have plenty of volume, and I mean the line has moved, but around 200 I think is still a bit too low. So definitely like the Stidham passing overs, and then I think I lean Broncos here because of the change that the market is implying relative from Knicks to Stidham, which I disagree with, and I think there are kind of a couple of rare instances where you can look at a line move and really point to it and say this is what the market is implying, and I think this falls into that case. And then I struggle to see this Patriots offense continuing to dominate the Broncos. This is a defense that has not allowed really any passer to go above like 5.5 yards per attempt, and that is May is certainly capable of mitigating that. He's a great scrambler. The Broncos do play a lot of man coverage. They're somewhat susceptible to the deep passing game, but this is still a terrific defense, a pass rush that I think can cause May a lot of problems, especially given the recent performance of his offensive line. And May is prone to sacks and turnovers, and I think the Broncos have an elevated chance of creating a sack fumble, exactly those sort of high variance plays we were just discussing. That ultimately I lean to the Broncos here.
Okay, and we'll get to the exact prop you want to do in a sort of long shot way, but Stidham over passing yards is something you're interested in, Judah. And do you feel, I guess, that the market hasn't fully caught up or thinks there's too big a difference between him and Bo Nix? Because I've heard other people make the point in the betting world that the market hasn't reacted enough with the news of Bo Nix's absence. So you feel it's reacted too much rather than what I've just said there?
Yeah, definitely too much, and that has me
Okay.
kind of more on the Broncos than anything else. And then on Stidham specifically, it's a matchup play here. I think Stidham's going to drop back 35 to 40 times, be decently efficient against the Patriots pass defense that has not been great. The cornerbacks are miraculously recovering from concussions. I'm not sure how fully healthy they are, but anytime a quarterback in an NFL game and a legitimate offense drops back 35 to 40 times and his passing yards is 200, I'm gonna buy the over there.
Okay, well, we'll get to the exact long shot there, so stay tuned to the end of the show. Brad, I'd love the penultimate show to have a bit of arguments with you, but you're in broad agreement, I think, on Stidham, but also the Broncos as well.
Yes. So Stidham, obviously we don't have a huge sample size. It's 4 games or so. But yes, as Judah says, the numbers are fine. Listening to some film people watch him this week saying he's a sort of a top tier backup, maybe something like Jacoby Brissett level, maybe slightly worse than that. And obviously he was Sean Payton's first signing, I think, first free agent signing. So he obviously likes him. Been in the system for 2 years. So I think Sean Payton's going to have, as Judah says, it's going to be pass first. I think it's going to be a lot of screens, a lot of easy buttons for him. And I think a key part of this is I don't think Bo Nix is any good. So I don't think you can downgrade a team 6 points for going from Bo Nix to a good backup. The strength of the Broncos, in my opinion, has not been Bo Nix this year. It's been the offensive line. It's been decent set of receivers. It's been obviously the defense. So to suddenly downgrade them, we'll call it 6 points. Obviously, it's not all points are created equal. You're going through 0, but they've downgraded them a good amount. So yeah, I also still have my questions about this Patriots offense. As we said, Drake May's weakness is he takes sacks, and he also has small hands. I think 9-inch hands, which is the same as Jared Goff, and everyone talks about Jared Goff's hands in the weather. So he is prone to a fumble. 6 fumbles in these 2 playoff games, 2 picks, 11 sacks taken. I guess what would be different here? He's not suddenly going to clean that up, change his entire game this week. So that, there is definitely a chance for game-changing plays. And then the Patriots D, as we spoke about, a key part of this, the offensive line. They've faced 2 bottom 5 offensive lines in the last 2 weeks, and they've looked menacing. Pass rush has been good. Now they're going on the road against the top 5 offensive line. That's a dramatic difference, which makes me think Denver should have a good chance to move the ball. So yeah, I prefer to focus on the first half, where we probably get a bit more Sean Payton script. They kept saying it last week in that game. Sean Payton's out of designer plays now. It's going to be up to the Bo Nix to move this ball in the fourth quarter. But in the first half, we should get more Sean Payton at the controls and less Jared Stidham. So you can get Broncos first half +3 is decently widely available at 1.9. There's a couple of spots for that. And I think that is a good way to get this.
Okay, and then props wise, you're actually looking at the Patriots for a wide receiver play here, Demario Douglas, 16.5.
Yeah, again, this is not widely available yet. I don't know if that's because Mac Hollins is not ruled in or out yet. But obviously he sailed over this last week with that one big play against the Texans. And the weakness of this Broncos defense, the 22nd in DVOA against the slot, where we expect Douglas to line up. And this line is just not adjusted. It was basically this last week. So I quite like Alts here. If you go 25 plus, I think he is an explosive player. They'll be taking shot plays to him in the slot, I think, and he'll be lined up most often against McMillan, which is the weakest of the Denver corners. So if they're going to move the ball, I quite like them to do it through the slot or the tight end. And Douglas to get like one big play, like a longest reception over, would be good as well. And again, not really widely available yet, but one to look out for in the next day or two.
Okay, keep an eye on those odds again. They'll be on the Matchbook Bet Builder, widely available, particularly the Saturday, Sunday when those odds get updated. If he is a full go there, Rams at the Seahawks. We do have a couple other bets that we'll come back to in the long shot section. Well worth staying tuned. Less bets here, but Brad, we'll start with you and set this game up. I mean, the Rams are 228 on the money line, Seahawks 174 at home. Seahawks lane -2.5, and the over 46.5, exactly on that point, with both odds the same there on the over and the under. We've seen these games before between these two sides. I mean, I guess the Seahawks are probably well-deserved favorites based with that home field advantage, but you've also got the Rams, who at times haven't looked great in the playoffs yet, have come up with the plays when it mattered most. I mean, there's a lot of questions here, but where do you want to start with this game?
There is a huge amount of questions here.
Yeah, I don't know where to start, mate.
I've found it really hard to get much of a feel for this game. And so we look at the first game. The Rams were one of their worst offensive performances of the season, 16th percentile in terms of EPA. Bad. And they won the game, and they were probably a lucky winner. And then the second game, 86th percentile, so like one of their best performances of the season, and then they lost the game. So I don't really know what we're going to get out of the Rams here. Stafford looked bad last week. There's some question, is he banged up? He obviously banged his hand on a helmet in the first playoff game at Carolina. He got hit a couple of times last week and then didn't look like he wanted to play. But was that just a cold and his bad back? Devontae Adams looks banged up as well. He doesn't look like he's running at full speed. So that's a little bit unclear for me. And then on the other side, you've got Sam Darnold, who is like the king of volatility. Like, he throws the ball beautifully and then he will throw an interception. And now he's got the oblique, so he threw for 100 yards last week. He didn't need to do anything. Does he get re-injured if he has to then throw 35 times if he gets hit? Nate Tice was describing him, Sam Darnold, as a shooter. Like, he will make mistakes, but he will try and shoot his way out. And he said he'll shoot his way out of trouble, or he will bury you because he'll then throw another pick. I mean, it was 4 interceptions the first game against the Rams. So I'm finding it quite tricky. One thing to think about, special teams, a huge advantage for Seattle. They're top 5 in special teams DVOA, and the Rams are bottom 5. Obviously, they fired their special teams coordinator in the season, not improved since then. One other thing would be the Rams travel. I think they've had 5 road games in the last 6 games, crisscrossing backwards and forwards across the country. So they're definitely a lot more tired. Does that count in the NFC Championship game? I think there's got to be a little bit of accumulated fatigue, whereas Seattle obviously had a laugher last week and a week off the week before that. So, yeah, I don't have a bet. I suspect, I think the winner wins the Super Bowl. Would lean like maybe Seattle, maybe should be -3, but yeah, tough one.
Yeah, Judah, like the Rams, so I've watched both their games, the playoffs in particular, and I mean, if I'm sitting in Dublin watching them against the Bears, they really need to start running this ball more, and it takes them so long to figure that out during the game. That makes me question the coaching staff a bit. But yeah, Sean McVay, when it matters most, produces these plays and gets the Rams over the line in both those playoff games. Is that a legit concern there going into this game, that it just hasn't been quite happening for the Rams throughout the game, and maybe they only just figure it out towards the end of these two big games that they've had, and both games, in fairness, they won?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be concerning. This is a team that had one of the best offenses in the NFL. You could say they weren't fully healthy, but they get a key offensive line piece back. They get Devontae Adams back, uh, and this is an offense going up against two pretty bad defenses. And the Rams did not have particularly great games. Like that is certainly concerning. And I think I very much agree with a lot of Brad's sentiment here of just like where to even start. And I'm glad that Brad was handed the breakdown to this game, because I'm very much in the same boat. And I think there are so many competing factors at play. I mean, the Seahawks offensive line injuries are pretty disastrous right now. Then again, the Rams pass rush has been absent for much of the last couple of months. The Rams secondary, for what it's worth, also has had one of the lowest perfect coverage rates in the NFL over the second half of the season. That's an area where Sam Darnold has taken advantage. Can Sam Darnold take advantage? How healthy is he? I don't think we really got much from the game script in San Francisco. I think what this game, one of the kind of key insights here, to your point, is how well the Rams can run the ball. And this is a Seahawks run defense that hasn't allowed anyone to run the ball, but this is also a Rams offense that's been one of the best in the league. And I think the Rams are likely, if they want to have some success offensively, are going to need to get that ground game going. But as you know, I think we've all led with, there are, I think, too many questions, not enough answers, and teams have been playing in such flux here that it's hard to know which kind of data points to believe. And it's a game that I'll be ultimately sitting out.
Okay, and there's no temptation with any alls in that regard, because even the way you're talking there, like, because there's so many question marks. If one team gets it so wrong or one team gets it so right, or you're just genuinely fluxed.
If you were, saying pick a side on the alts, it would be the Seahawks. Okay. And I think that the script there is the Rams offense is what they've been essentially the last three games. The defense kind of stymies Stafford. Stafford is a quarterback that's relatively sensitive to his opponent. Certainly if they fall on a negative game script, and this is a Rams defense that has struggled. The Seahawks, I think, propensity to generate turnovers by virtue of having an aggressive and disruptive defense is much higher. I don't see, given how good the Seahawks defense is right now, a scenario in which the Rams blow them out. Of course, that can happen. Anything can happen in football. But I do think the median kind of lends itself to Matthew Stafford over Sam Darnold effectively. But there's a lot more mass on the right tail for the Seahawks.
Yeah, Rams ultimately haven't been good in the playoffs. So if that just is their base, perhaps there's a small bit on the odds there. But and even as the guys were saying around the special teams, I mean, Seahawks, about the only team I've ever seen win the game on the first play before it even starts. Absolutely wild stuff against the Niners. But ultimately, the guys are sitting it out. Small leans, I say very small leans from both for the Seahawks if they were pushed to have a bet, but you don't have to bet on every game, even in the playoffs. But we will go to long shots, which will effectively be our final sort of section here, both on the Broncos-Patriots game, or Patriots-Broncos game. So it's all on the line at this 8 o'clock game. Great for the people listening in the UK and Ireland. Brad, we'll start with you because you put a bit of a bet builder together. So what we're trying to do is, and you guys always say it, so feel free to repeat this point, but you're trying to find things that sort of correlate in one sense, but don't in another sense in terms of the price. Therefore, you might be getting an inflated price on these bet builders versus what you might ordinarily do by betting singles, that sort of thing. Am I sort of right there? And where do you want to go with your long shot here?
Yeah, where maybe there's like a reverse correlation being applied to like boost the price. But I disagree with the correlation that the bookie has applied. So in this case, the angle might be that Sean Payton is going to throw a lot more with Jarrett Stidham than the market expects, because that's the system. That's what they've done all season long. Bo Nix led the NFL in pass attempts. And he's going to continue to throw because that's his system. I mean, last week I had a lot of bets on Broncos running the ball because the Bills were so weak defending the run and so good against the pass. And Sean Payton did not care about that. He ignored that entirely and continued to throw the ball 2/3 of the time. And so if we assume more of the same, so we spoke earlier about Denver first half, and if we just tie that with Jarrett Stidham 25 plus completions, we get up to 12-1. And we get, obviously there's a nice boost applied there because a quarterback is normally going to be in a trailing game state if he's throwing that often. But obviously, we think he's going to cover the first half, so maybe he's ahead. So yeah, that boosts us up to 12-1 with 2 fairly possibly likely outcomes if we think Sean Payton wants to throw the ball.
Okay, yes, 13.0. You can get that on the Matchbook Bet Builder, and at around 7.0, I've just thrown it into the Matchbook Bet Builder. Judah, similar angle, but you're going for the passing yards and Broncos on the money line. So that was your sort of lean if you had to have a bet there. Stronger lean than the Seahawks game for sure, but Stidham over 225 passing yards and Broncos money line there. You think that correlates quite well, or as Brad said, reverse numbers.
I think precisely to the point, which is like there's going to be volume on Stidham's side. I think it's when he is more successful or exceeding market expectations, that's kind of the most likely path to a Broncos win. Because I think, and the market is, I think, somewhat pricing this, but not fully pricing in. Like Stidham's going to drop back to pass, so it's his effectively playing above expectation. That's ultimately, I think, the highest correlated in this script with the Broncos winning. It's possible, of course, that they rely on their defense here, but I do think that they will be able to do something, and I don't think the Broncos' rush offense has much of an ability to lead them to a victory here. So if the Broncos are going to win, I think that is likely through Stidham exceeding expectations.
Okay, similar angles there. Again, all of this is recapped on insights.matchbook.com. Before we go, Judah, any final thoughts on this weekend before next time the guys will see you? It will be Super Bowl previewing that. But in terms of the season or these 2 games specifically, anything we haven't mentioned to look out for, or any final thoughts?
No, I mean, an amazing season. There are some lines, still waiting for. Pop Douglas, chiefly among them. He is the king of both single high last week and man coverage, which would be the Broncos this week. But we'll see about the injuries there. Also, some injuries in the other side of the ball. But yeah, it's interesting. There are certain weeks where you love to bet. And you might not love to watch the football independent of that betting. I'm talking about a great Tyler Shuck, Cam Ward, Saints, Titans game, an amazing game to bet. Less exciting on the football front. This is kind of the reverse, which I think as was the theme of today's conversation about how much uncertainty there is. And I think that makes for a lot of very intriguing football, even if not in the kind of most traditional sense, but not necessarily the best betting conditions. But for the Super Bowl, there will always be things to bet on, and the market really delivers. I'm stoked for this weekend. This is my favorite day of football of the year, our second favorite behind Week 1, I should say. Another awesome season, and stoked for Sunday.
Yeah, we could get Broncos Seahawks, which would be 8, 9 in the Super Bowl, which would be pretty wild stuff. Brad, any final thoughts for you? I mean, it is the most efficient market probably in sports. I mean, Premier League might run it close over the last few years, but sometimes the most efficient market is actually correct sometimes.
It is. And, with games like this, you have the entire week to break it down, don't you? And the same with the Super Bowl. I love getting 2 weeks to think about every possible angle. So there's, it can benefit you as well if you've got more time. So yeah, and one other thing I'd mention, have a look at some look-ahead lines. I know there's a few out there. Like I'm looking at a Rams laying 3 to the Patriots in a potential Super Bowl, or Seattle laying 3.5. So I mean that's another way to get the NFC on side for the big game.
Yeah, being fascinating market once it goes up late Sunday night in America, obviously, and maybe early Monday morning here in the UK and Ireland. Insights.matchbook.com. I mentioned it. Matchbook Insights. Just search that. You get a full recap of the guys' picks. Look at that on Championship Sunday. And then finally, if you can take 2 seconds, hit that like button or subscribe completely for free to the Matchbook YouTube channel. It's not just NFL, it's football, horse racing, and plenty of other sports beside. But enjoy this Sunday night, particularly if you're staying up for the second game. And we're going to chat to you in around 2 weeks' time to preview what will be, hopefully, an incredible Super Bowl. Bye for now.